capital. Of course, they also support from loan from the banks. They're now the biggest producers of seeds. In the past, we had to depend on seeds imported. But if we import seeds from Minnesota, seeds are soil specific and climate specific. If you import seeds, they may be working well in California, but they will not work well in Tanzania. So we had to build this capacity for seed production in the country. And there where I can say, I sincerely thank Agra for being one of the supporters of the private sector in Tanzania to be able to produce seeds. And we have made progress. We have made progress in this regard because of support from Agra. But we also said they can supply inputs. They can bring in machinery so that we reduce the use of the hand hoe. They can create financing facilities so that farmers can access credit and use this credit to buy inputs and other machinery. Well, but we did not end with the local private sector. We brought in the international private sector as well. When we had the WEF for Africa, because the WEF for Africa used to be hosted in Cape Town. When I was president, I attended the WEF. I spoke to Thabo Mbeki. You're always monopolizing WEF. Can we host it in Tanzania? I said, no, that's fine. So, but when we hosted the WEF in Tanzania, I asked Professor Krauf, yes, that I want our main theme should be transforming Africa's agriculture. But prior to that, I visited Rome, had meetings with Jack Diouf at that time, who was still with FAO, Kanayo, Manze was with Ifpri. I spoke to them. And with Nanz and Kanayo, we said, let's have a conspiracy. Let's develop a conspiracy on how to transform Africa's agriculture. So when we had this WEF meeting in Dar es Salaam, apart from the meetings where Klaus was there busy talking about World Economic Forum, we set like-minded group of people interested in agriculture. I chaired as president, and of course we had the other president with a small p, Kanayo. Yes. It is that meeting that we came up with ideas on what we can do to intensify the transformation of agriculture. And that we gave assignment to some of them were here. We agreed that next WEF now in Davos, that they have come up with ideas. And it is this process that came to create the Grow Africa, which NEPAD was projecting. So, I was saying, but the evidence is clear when it comes to Africa's agriculture. Low productivity, because when you talk about backward, the word may look bad. But it's low productivity, low production, hunger, poverty. The last thing I want to mention is that when I was president, I was looking at Tanzania's economy was growing at 7%. I inherited the economy growing at 7%. But when you look at the growth structure, you see financial intermediation 9%, industrial 9%, transit trade 14%, this one 14%, agriculture 4%. So because agriculture's growth is 4%, and this is where over 70 to 80% of the people rely upon, that is why there is so much poverty on the African continent. Because the sector that people rely on is not growing fast enough. Economists are saying if a sector grows for 7% for 10 years, the GDP doubles. The GDP of agriculture does not double because there are losses. So this is the other incentive. What is it that we will do to transform the agricultural sector on the African continent? Identify the challenges, identify the constraints, come up with ideas on what needs to be done, but involve the experts in the various fields. Involve the private sector, both local and international. Involve institutions like Agra and the others that are interested in the development of agriculture. We will see transformation of agriculture in Africa. Food security will be assured. Poverty will be reduced. Thank you. Sorry, I took too much of your time. I saw you being nervous.
A warm applause once again, please, for President Caadp. What evidence do we need other than this practical example leadership? How the President of Tanzania addressed short-term challenges and then addressed strategic issues. So in a very short period of time, Tanzania was able to export from a net importer of agricultural commodities into a surplus exporter of leadership matters. And thank you, President, for this leadership. Before I move into introducing the panelists, please allow me to recognize Honorable Dr. Mark Bagabe, Minister of Agriculture and Animal Resources of Rwanda. Welcome, Mr. Excellency. And more importantly, please allow me also, which I missed to recognize my president, Dr. Agnes, who has been behind all the success stories. Thank you so much. Now, I would like to invite honorable panelists to the stage. I would just start by Honorable Samuel Kawale, the Minister of Agriculture in Malawi. Please join us with a warm applause. Dr. Chantal Ignabir, Director General Planning, Minister of Agriculture, Rwanda. Welcome. Honorable Dr. Fred Jassau, has he joined us? I think he did not. So, Dr. Edidahe Lubanga Empire, a Social Science Senior Research Fellow from CRS. Thank you for joining us. Just before raising the major questions on today's panel discussion, I just want your reflections on the pressing challenges and opportunities of our actionable strategies in your respective areas as far as the food systems implementation is concerned. Excellency, Minister.
Well, first of all, I thought after the President spoke, you would have wrapped up the whole meeting because I explained it very eloquently and very inspiring as well on what he was able to do when he was in office and also what other presidents who followed him have managed to do. So I'd like to say thank you very much for doing that, because we have a lot to learn from what you've done and also what Tanzania has done. Similar to some of the challenges that many countries, especially Southern Eastern African countries, are facing at the moment, definitely climate change is one of the biggest hurdle that we're supposed to overcome for us to achieve the goals we need in the agriculture sector. Definitely when climate change is hitting us, we will see the decrease in production activity, which impacts the economy because we're not able to generate enough forests, which enables us to import the raw material or the inputs we need, as well as farm equipment and everything else. So for us as a country, Malawi, quite a number of things are at play that are making it very difficult for us to get to where we aspire, specifically in the agriculture sector. Yeah.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Just a follow-up on the challenges of Malawi's agriculture, particularly as we've been, in the Caadp Malabo strategy, from 2015 to 2025. The African governments committed to grow with 6% per annum in the sector, with 10% allocation of resources.
Sure.
And the role of also research in really providing evidence has been also very well articulated in the strategy. So what has been the experience of Malawi in leveraging research and evidence-based policies making in the food system sector towards the achievement of those commitments that we are left with less than a year?
Well, we did realize as a country that we can't continue doing things the same way over and over again, and then expect a different result. That's why I think as the policies that we put in place have come or have been generated from research. Now, after realizing the importance of investing heavily in research, but at the same time listening to the experts, as he said, we have put a lot of money as a government, and also invited the private sector to play a role by investing in research activities. We have the Department of Agriculture Research Services, which falls under the Ministry of Agriculture, but we have also engaged other institutions like Mwapata Institute, who are very good at providing evidence-based results. And at the same time, we've also involved universities and colleges to help us with research. We have Lilongwe University of Agriculture and Natural Resources, who are doing a lot of research from crops, livestock, fisheries, soil health, seeds, herbicides and pesticides, everything being done in their campuses. So for us, we feel that it's very important to invest heavily, not just investing heavily, but adopting and adapting the research that they're providing to come up with good policies that will help drive the agriculture sector. I must say that we've also shown some seriousness in getting the research results being implemented. For example, last year, end of last year, we released 3 policies documents to the public, which were formulated from the research that our partners came up with. We emphasized on the issue of land resource and management. We're also looking at the issues of irrigation. All those things have come out of research that has been developed by the Ministry of Agriculture as well as development partners, which have also led to other programs that we are currently running.
Excellent. I'll come back, Excellency, second round. Let me move to Dr. Shanti on again, same question. What were really the challenges and opportunities and issues that you faced, in agri-food transformation in Rwanda? Can you share your experiences?
Thank you so much, Director. First of all, I think I have to express my gratitude to be part of this panel representing Rwanda, presence of my Honorable Minister. Rwanda has recently launched a strategic plan for agricultural transformation that will focus on building resilient and sustainable food systems. The development of the strategy has taken around 9 months, has been a long time. opportunities, currently the engagement of the different stakeholders we have, the growing private sector we have in the country. So we think that with the adoption of this food systems approach, we have more chance of having more investment coming to the agriculture sector.
Thank you so much. Just a follow-up on Rwanda's case, especially from planning and implementation perspective. To what extent Rwanda has really achieved those Caadp, Malabo Caadp strategy is the past 9 years?
Thank you so much. I think that everyone in this room is aware that we have been the best performer for the last 4 Caadp BR consecutive.
Yeah.
So we have been the very first country to adopt Caadp Compact in 2007. And after adoption of the Caadp Compact, actually, we had to make sure that the principles are integrated in our national policy framework. That is itself guided by the Rwanda's vision. By then it was Rwanda Vision 2020, and currently we have Rwanda's Vision 2050. And agriculture is among the pillars of the Rwanda's vision. So the government's guidance on this Caadp implementation is that we make sure our policies, our strategies integrate Caadp commitments. And this applies to all sectors, not only agriculture. In order to, when we talk about 10% allocation, we are not talking about agriculture sector alone. We also consider the investment put in rural development. So that means other different sectors than agriculture are also concerned. So the general guidance from the national vision is that we make sure Caadp commitments are integrated in our strategies. So at the sector level, the Ministry of Agriculture develops the strategic plans for agriculture transformation. We are the 5th edition, as I mentioned. It has been launched, and we made sure we also consider the Caadp commitment, the 4 priorities of Caadp, including research and technology transfer. Of course, there are challenges, but we have noted that together with different stakeholders we have in Rwanda, we are really doing well, despite the different potentials we have to improve. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I think let me move to Dr. Adideha. As a development partner, what are some of the experiences you can share to us on how evidence-based research can support development of policy implementation and delivery?
Thank you so much. And I appreciate for having me here, representing Canada's International Development Research Center, IGRC. I'll be quick to mention that we, as IGRC, as a development partner, we don't have work of our own. So because then we fund work that is done by the countries themselves, and here we Agra fund Agra, for example, to work with the different countries. So when we hear the different countries that have worked on the contributing towards the Caadp indicators, broadening from agriculture sector to food systems, then that's the kind of work that we do. So we talk about the work that the partners have done. And the thing that we think what works, actually what we find that work. For instance, if I take this particular example where the countries have been developing, broadening, the Caadp uses agriculture indicators, but broadening to include the food system indicators. It's where people have used, the intersectoral approaches, the governments that have been able to use intersectoral approaches to inform the evidence they generate to inform how they can work that way. So what would work then is like we already have 4 countries that have gone through this process: Malawi, Rwanda, Ghana, and Ethiopia. One of the strategies is to learn from these countries that have gone ahead. I'm so happy to hear what Tanzania have done. So that's part of the evidence that has worked. learning from that evidence, like not starting from scratch. So the country should be able to learn from the countries that have gone ahead of them and the processes they have used to come to where they are. So what they do with that evidence then is use it to reflect on their context-specific issues. So get what Rwanda has been able to do, what Malawi has been able to do, but reflect it against your own context and see how you can apply that evidence. You know, that is one way. The second way is that when research has done the evidence, because we fund research organizations mainly, when they generate evidence, a lot of the time it is research that should be translated for the countries to work with, for the governments and the other non-state stakeholders to work with. So translating that evidence, so the word I can use is like, interpreting that evidence for people who must use it so that they can see the impact, like from the farm where they want to use productivity, through the marketing, through the value addition marketing to the consumer level, so that the governments, these users, are able to appreciate the value of the role that evidence will bring at every node of the food system. And when they have understood it, they take it up and use it. But if you keep it as research, into papers and publications, it won't help these countries to move forward. The last thing I want to say is that using this evidence helping further policy implementation is not going to help. We have a big part of addressing inequalities. Issues of inequality, including gender equality and inclusion, are very important. When we try to bring everybody on board, I appreciate that countries have come up to look at women and youth as a big portion that can cause economic development. But we still need to take this further and see, even the policies, the national level policies have talked about it and include them. What are the specific actions that we can use at implementation levels? And so when it comes to policy implementation, there's a national level policy, but there's local government, and I think for Africa we all have different levels of local government. Where does this evidence create more impact? So being able to address inequalities, and now we realize some evidence is showing that there are other provisions, like I call them initiatives, or other additional kind of policies or frameworks that should lead to effective implementation. For example, if you're talking about including women and really making them become productive for economic development, you need to be addressing issues of the care economy. Women are spending a lot of time into care work and domestic work that is not monetized to say this is what they're contributing. What are the initiatives governments can put in place to reduce the burden of women into care work and domestic work to be able to contribute more economically? So put in those structures. What are the initiatives you can put in place to reduce sexual harassment and the gender-based violence? That when women get money, then fights result in households, Being able to address those norms that still constrain women from really getting involved in economic and prosperity. So that's the evidence, and this evidence is available that we can tap into and use to be able to implement effectively, but the implementation actions addressing those constraining factors that still exist. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. Let me come back to you, Honorable Minister. Now, we are on the horizon of launching Caadp 2026 to 2035 strategy, informed by the Malabo Caadp strategy. Now, to what extent the Malabo Caadp strategy has been embedded into the national research system and informed the mega farms, for example, in Malawi, to provide evidence-based decision making? Can you share some of the insights?
Well, we did realize the importance of reflecting on what we have been looking at in the past, and now we are going into the third installment. The horizon while we are here. But in terms of adopting and adapting what we've learned in the past and what we want to move forward, first of all, as I said, we needed to come up with policies that will align to the continental goals. That's why our policies that were put in place over the last year, we kind of like went ahead of ourselves to think of what we need to do next, and then already started working on those things. So I think that's what, like what I said earlier on in the main room, we shared some of the steps and strategies. But in terms of implementing on the ground, after realizing that we needed to make some good progress in the agriculture sector, and also looking at the evidence that was provided to us, all the evidence looked at the fact that Malawi needs to invest heavily in mega farms without neglecting the smallholder farmer. What we have understood is that increase in agricultural productivity can happen if the private sector is capacitated, at the same time the smallholder farmer also given the opportunities to do things well. That's why the issue of soil health became one of our key policies that we had to put in place, so that the mega farmers are implementing good soil management practices, putting lime in the soil, using organic fertilizer, and so on. And by implementing that, they are also helping or anchoring the whole smallholder farmer so that they can all develop at the same time. And at the same time, the whole issue of mega farm, before we also implemented it, we had to define what a mega farm is in our context. That's why for crops, definition of a mega farm for crops is different from livestock and fisheries and things like that. So moving forward, we are investing heavily in the mega farms which are run by the private sector, so that they can complement or supplement what the Ministry of Agriculture and the government is currently doing. So you will see that as a country moving forward, as we are implementing Caadp policies and so on, the mega farms will be one of the most important flagship programs that we are emphasizing. So the government is putting its skin in the game. The private sector is coming in, the development partner, they are also coming on board to make sure that we are achieving the right investment, the use of mechanization, the use of soil health policies, and also making sure that the productivity that we are all talking about is really being seen. So we don't want to work in isolation of what the continent is doing. We don't want to work in isolation of what the continent is doing, what other countries are doing, but adopting and adapting what other policies are there within the region, but also at the continental level.
Thank you, Excellency. That's very insightful. Let me come back to you, DP Shantan, on if you can share us your experience or evidence, how evidence and research have shaped the PSTA 5 plan, that is the Rwanda Strategic Plan for Agricultural Transformation, 10, building resilience and sustainable agricultural systems.
Thank you so much. I can say that evidence and research have played a significant role in the formulation of PSTA 5. The development of the strategy took around 6 steps, and the very first step was about gathering evidences to make sure we formulate informed interventions. And we used the existing database from our National Institute of Statistics. We used existing literature, but we also conducted some primary research, especially through consultations for the qualitative data we used. We did several consultations with different stakeholders. Apart from those databases that were already existing, we had studies, papers with different partners. For example, now in the presence of Ifpri, they helped the team on modeling. We used the RIAPA to measure the potential impact of our
different interventions on the outcomes. We had outcomes like nutrition, job creation, export revenues, and even growth. So we have worked with the Ifpri on that, on a public expenditure and how it's likely to, for example, affect the implementation of Peace Tier 5 and how the outcomes will be impacted. We also worked with other partners like, again, the Global Alliance for Improved Nutrition on some different studies, especially mapping the different stakeholders who are contributing in the nutrition component, but also different studies on how, the status of nutrition in the country and how we can address the different gaps we have in that particular area. We had another very interesting study with the University of Bonn. I'm just trying to give example of research and evidences generated during the formulation of our strategy, and that have been very useful in the formulation of interventions. We had a study with the University of Bonn on sustainable land management. They worked with different sectors, different ministries contributing to that particular component of sustainable land management in Rwanda. And one of their findings was that if we could improve coordination among those different sectors, we could manage to cut off the budget by 15% annually. And that particular study, among others, has inspired the ministry to think about establishing a food systems coordination unit. And I'm just giving a few examples, but I can really highlight here that research evidences have been core component of our development of this our strategy, and you can even notice that throughout the document. The very first section of the document are about evidences, where we present the performance of the agri-food systems and agriculture sector, showing the gaps based on the robust analysis we have conducted. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable TG. Let me move to Dr. Ida, am I saying it right? Yeah. So just follow up again on what Ida was saying earlier. Give us some evidences how research can really shape post-Malabo or the Kampala Caadp strategy, and looking forward in the coming 10 years. Over to you. Thanks.
Okay, thank you so much. Of course, you've heard now from Honorable. It's about building on this evidence, continuing to build on evidence. So I have an appeal for government, but let me say, so this evidence, the way we use the evidence, so you see like Rwanda gives a clear example of how much evidence they gathered and they are using. When this SDP or whatever strategy you're developing informed by evidence, when you do the reviews, when you're reviewing your strategy, review with evidence. That's how it can shape post-Malabo. Every time you review, whether you are reviewing annually, you are reviewing mid-term, you have to review with evidence. Because the moment you start implementing actions and interventions, it means something is going to change. And when something changes, a new problem comes up. So it means that every time you review your strategy, you are reviewing performance, you have to review with evidence what has changed that we can advance. What has not changed? What are the new evidence we need in the strategies to combat that? So now, my appeal to governments then is that government should appreciate and seek to use evidence. We find